Hey guys, Armchair Conversations with Rob. I touched on something at the end of one of my talks a minute ago, or a few minutes ago, or whenever you watched it, that I want to play with, and that was being afraid. I think every one of us at some point in time is afraid of something. Um, I don't know if I want to talk about any particular type of fear rather than just fear itself. Because a lot of times the things that we're afraid of, sometimes they don't even happen. Um, Sometimes the things that we're afraid of aren't necessarily as big as we make them. But because fear, is such a powerful emotion, sometimes it keeps us from getting some of the things that we want, doing some of the things that we want, going some of the places that we want, and maybe even being the person that we want to be. Um, let's play with the concept, shall we? Uh, a lot of times, you fear failure. And grown-ups, especially us so-called grown-ups, we fear failure because we say, oh my God, what if I try this thing and it doesn't work? um, Question: how many thousands of things have you tried over your life that didn't work and you didn't like spontaneously combust or evaporate into the ether? Or everybody in the world remembers it constantly and harangues and harasses you about it and talks about you and laughs about you and puts you on national TV as the bulletin board of a failure? Really? There's a lot of things that you have failed at over the course of your life that didn't kill you, didn't destroy you. They might have hurt your feelings a little bit, yeah. Okay, or they may have embarrassed you a little bit, yeah. Maybe your friends might have talked about you for a short while, but luckily most of us don't have a good enough attention span to keep harping about it forever. Um, and so if that's being the case, then why would all of a sudden now you let fear stop you from doing stuff? Because we do. We try something, and if it doesn't work, we might try one more time, especially if nobody ever knows about it. And if that doesn't work, then we normally don't try again. Maybe because we're afraid of what's happening as far as being a failure. Maybe we're afraid of people picking on us, making fun of us. We're afraid of looking bad. Um, I look you in the camera and say balderdash. You probably failed at a million things in your lifetime, but it didn't stop you from living and moving forward. And I don't think it should stop you now, because a lot of times fear is just the this false evidence appearing real. I've heard that before, and I kind of like that one. I'm gonna keep it. I don't know where I borrowed it from, and so if you're a person who's patented that, I am sorry, but I'm using it today. False evidence appearing real, because the places that fear exists is in our thoughts. Um, in our thoughts of the present, in our thoughts of the future, in our thoughts of the past. Mainly our thoughts of the present and the future, though, if you think about it, because maybe something happened to you in your past that was uncomfortable, hurt your feelings, made you embarrassed, or made you feel bad. And then you bring that feeling into the present to make you afraid to maybe try that thing again or something like that thing. Or you will then take that feeling further on into your future and say, this could happen if I try this, and so therefore I'm not going to do it because this could happen. Um, One of the ones that I really like, and it's kind of a strange story, but Joel Osteen tells it in a story of his that I heard on a CD I was listening to about him. I think it was the book Your Best Life Now. It might actually be in the book. I heard an audio version, and he was talking about a guy who basically got locked in a boxcar over the weekend and froze to death. Um, he just felt himself getting colder and colder, and he was beating on the door and yelling, and nobody could hear him because it was over a weekend, and he ended up freezing to death. But when they went to actually find him the next week, when they pulled the body and checked the car, the refrigeration unit on the boxcar, it was a train, on the boxcar, wasn't even working. So basically, because of his fear of freezing to death in a refrigerated boxcar, and being left over the weekend where nobody could find him, he literally froze to death in a lukewarm boxcar because of his perception, his fear about what was going to happen, brought it to reality. And so I feel like just saying to you guys today, balderdash, you do not have to let fear be your controller or your jailer. You can let it be your counselor, because I'm not saying you should never be afraid. Okay. To me, that's the other end of silliness. Okay. It's just as silly to be afraid of everything as it is to be afraid of nothing. I think there's a healthy balance because fear can be a counselor and not a jailer. In other words, you should have a healthy fear of certain things, like certain types of danger or certain types of risk, that you may need to manage in your life. But if you never do anything because there's a possibility for danger or risk, then fear has become your jailer and not your counselor. Because if you use it as a counselor, you're going to plan wisely to mitigate the dangers as much as possible so that you can then do the thing that you might be a little fearful of, and it becomes less fearful and more maybe just nervous or anxious or whatever, because you've prepared somewhat for mitigating the dangers of the possible risks to your person. But we let fear stop us all the time. We let ourselves not go places, do things, find things, see things, look things because we're afraid. We turn our head the other way when we should stand up for someone's rights. We may, not say that thing that we really want to say because we're afraid of hurting someone's feelings, or maybe you're afraid of being rejected for your ideas. There's a lot of permutations on this fear thing, but I just want to touch on it a little bit today because I just thought about it. A lot of the things that we are afraid of never even happened to us. Um, and that's something that I think is important to put out there. But I will also put it out here from a law of attraction stance. Sometimes the things you fear, you can actually bring into your life because fear has such great energy. Um, Fear is a very, very powerful primal emotion, and there's a lot of energy attached to that, because I feel like that we are energetic creatures, even though we have a physical body and we may have some chemistry going on with our little cellular reactions, but I think we're also energy. Our thoughts are energy, our feelings are energy, and I think that they do draw to us like a magnet. I think they can repel also like magnets can do. But I think you have to decide where you're at, what you're thinking, how you're feeling, and realize whether or not that's going to draw something to you, maybe that you don't like. What is the line? The thing that I feared has greatly come upon me. You know, oh, I'm sorry. The thing that I've greatly feared has come upon me. Um, that is something that is indicative of the idea that your worry, your fear is going to bring some situations and circumstances that you don't want to you, because you're using that energy to focus on that, and that's what you're focusing on. Then that's exactly what's going to happen for you. Um, it's just like I used to have a fear of my phone ringing while I was doing some taping, but you know what? I'm pretty much over it right now, and it can ring. I also had a huge fear, guys, of sitting on this camera and talking to you guys, especially not looking like GQ clean and wearing like nicer clothes and having everything set up and my room clean behind you, perfectly coiffed. There was a time when I worried about those things and they bothered me. But I realized that in order to overcome this fear and start realizing that some of this stuff is pretty damn small, then I just set up the camera and I start talking, and I'm going to put this stuff out there. And whether it is professional or not, I really don't care. It is exposure, and it gives me over my fear of worrying about what people are going to say. Because again, my grandma always said, they talk about Jesus, you think they're going to talk about you? So anyway, back to fear. So I want you to examine some of the reasons why you're afraid of certain things. I want you to figure out if it's real or not. If it's valid, maybe you need to deal with it. Maybe you need to get some books or talk to some people or get some encouragement to get out there and do what you need to do. Maybe you need to uh, investigate why something happened. You may need to delve a little into your past to see if you are afraid of something for reasons that have happened before, and you're bringing them into your present and hence maybe possibly into your future, maybe you need to look at and actually check the data. This one is a favorite one of mine as of late, because a lot of times the things that we fear are going to happen, um, you know, don't match up with the data. You may feel a certain way, you may be worried about a certain thing, but the data doesn't suggest that it's happening. Um, it's like people that when something happens in their home or their car, they feel like at the next moment the whole thing could just fall down. Well, that's a fear, okay? But when you go back and look at the data, like, oh, the pipe is dripping, or, oh, I had to change a tire, or, oh, I need, a little uh, coolant. That's a big one of mine in the engine to make it run better, or check the oil or whatever. And you look at the data, it doesn't support the fact of going from zero to destruction. Um, I play with my kids about this kind of stuff all the time, because there are days and times when they fear certain things and they'll go from zero to destruction. And I'll be like, we're not even close to there yet, guys. So maybe you need to think about that, you know. And so I even ask myself, like when I'm afraid of something, or I'm afraid about something that's maybe conquerable and not fear being my counselor. And I say, well, what is the evidence that supports that? What do you see that's telling you that this is possibly going to happen? It's kind of like, if it starts raining, that the sky is falling. What is your evidence? Are there pieces of sky falling? And what the hell is that? Chicken Little, could have benefited from a little evidence procedure other than just something hitting him on the head once or twice. Although it's a cute story for growing up. So anyway, my point is, challenging your fears is important. I don't think that you should have none, but I don't think you should have too many either. You have to find the balance that works for you. If you want to conquer your fears and overcome them, you have to sometimes look at them and realize that they may not exist at present, and they may not ever exist. And so then you ask yourself what your evidence procedure is. So I just wanted to throw that out there because I just happened to be talking a little bit about it. And I want to encourage those of you that will to overcome some of your fears and put yourself out there in positions where you can learn something, again, expand your horizons and evolve yourself. And if you're really that afraid of something happening or coming upon you, run the evidence procedure. Is there any evidence to support what I believe, or is this just a feeling? Because sometimes your feelings, even though I think they're very important and they do have energy, I think that sometimes you have to balance your feelings with data, with evidence, with facts. And if the fact is that this doesn't seem likely, or statistics are 1 out of every 10, and this is my first try, you know, maybe you need to listen to that and give things a try. Because part of being brave and having courage is doing things anyway, even though you're afraid, even though things haven't worked out up until now. Because I'm definitely one that is being moved by the idea of getting back up and continuing to throw stuff against the wall, because eventually some of it's going to stick. Eric Thomas had a line that I'll leave you with, and I liked it very much. And he said, if you hit an oak tree 1,000 times in 1,000 different spots, what's going to happen? Absolutely nothing, likely. But if you hit a oak tree 1,000 times in the exact same spot, you know what is likely to happen, that you're going to bring it down, that you're going to do the impossible. Okay? And so I'm encouraging you to use the things that you know about pushing forward and being courageous, and keep swinging until it comes down, whatever the obstacle is. And don't be afraid if you can help it. If you can't help it, it's okay to be afraid, but use it for something. Use your evidence procedure and use it to give you a chance to be courageous today. So, guys, I thank you for your share my armchair, and I really, really hope to see you again. Hope you guys have a great time. See ya.